Well, it's Sunday, November the 30th, 2025, and I'm just standing above the Morrison's car park in Brecon. I'm going to head off now to an Iron Age hillfort, which is on top of a hill about a mile from here. It's called Slwch Tump, and it's well worth a visit. So I'm going to walk up the hill towards the hospital, leading also to the local secondary school. And when I get to a green lane which leads to the Tump, I'll stop and talk about that for a while. I'm just starting along an old green lane. It's quite an interesting one because, as you can see, we're right alongside a main road here. You can see Creek in the distance. This green lane is quite inconspicuous. It starts on the hill just after the War Memorial Hospital in Brecon. It's called Slwch Lane. Let me show you some more of it. Green lanes are old tracks or roads. They're often very ancient and they've fallen into disuse. There used to be a network of roads and tracks leading all over Britain during the Iron Age, and indeed earlier. Some of them date back to the Neolithic. Gradually, some of them became redundant. New roads were built to replace them. Other of these old tracks are still in existence, but nobody knows no one recognises them. For example, there used to be a Bronze Age trackway leading from London right up to Anglesey, where there were copper mines. When the Romans came, they paved over that track and it became known as Watling Street. Amazingly, you can still see it in central London. If you stand at Marble Arch, if you look up the Edgware Road is part of Watling Street, which is an old Bronze Age track. It carries on, becomes Kilburn High Street, goes past Brent Cross Shopping Centre, and eventually, if you carried along it, it would take you to Anglesey. This sort of track here, though, has become disused. It runs along a ridge of land. These days it's a footpath, a bridleway. There are fields either side of it. When people were building, starting to ploughing fields, they didn't do them right on the trackway. Obviously they did to either side, which means that a lot of these green lanes now run between farmland. They run between fields, and sometimes no one has any particular responsibility for them. This one is particularly ancient. It's called Slwch Lane, and it leads up to Slwch Tump. Tump is a dialect word. It's not particularly Welsh. It's found in England as well. It just means a rounded hill. So the fact that this green lane leads up to Slwch Tump, which was an Iron Age hillfort, suggests that it was there then, that this particular track has been here for over 2,000 years, which makes it of some interest in itself. Anyway, I'll come back to you because later on there's a really fantastic view of the beacons. Here is a really fantastic view of the central beacons. To the left you can see the jagged tooth-like mountain, which is Cribben, which I filmed the other day, and to the right of it, higher, you can see Penavam. Sweeping round here like this, you can see other places, and in the distance there you can probably see Creek, and there's Brecon below. This is another reason why I like this particular green lane, because every so often it gives you glimpses of the surrounding countryside like this. You get a great view of Brecon from up here. That's the way we came, Slwch Lane, and the lane also veers a bit here and goes up this way. This isn't a huge climb, it's about 800 foot to the top, but it's got a certain amount of interest to it because you can actually see the remains of the old fortifications, the Iron Age hills and ditches up there. I'll go up a little bit and then we'll stop and talk about it. This is the highest point of the Tump. There's not a great deal left of the fortifications, but my word, have you ever seen such a more glorious view? You can see the whole of Brecon laid out before you here. Isn't that fantastic? It's only a mile or so from the centre of the town, and there you can see Penna Creek, which I spoke about in a previous video. These two hill forts are matching, they one either side of the town, and I would imagine that this is one of the reasons that Brecon was founded here in the first place, because of its Iron Age connections. It's only a short walk from the middle of town. I think anybody looking around here should have no difficulty at all. You see there's Penna, and the little mountain next to it is Corndee. Anybody looking at this should have no difficulty at all in understanding why I came to live in Brecon and why I prefer it to the outskirts of London. Anyway, I'll move on until I can find some of the actual traces of the hill fort. Well, you can see a bank of earth along here, which was really one of the ramparts of the fort. And elsewhere there are of course ditches. I suppose the truth is that unless you are particularly interested in prehistoric remains, which I happen to be, there isn't a great deal to see up on a site like this. You can find ditches, you can find banks of earth, and occasionally you can find what might probably have been the entrance to the fort. But it's simply the feeling for me of being somewhere so ancient, somewhere forgotten, that moves me. That and walking along tracks that I know were made thousands of years ago and are now almost forgotten. They've become bridle paths, bridleways, footpaths. Hardly ever anybody goes along them. You can walk along most of the green lanes in this area and not encounter anybody. There's one leading to the Roman fort. I'll be talking about that and going along that at some point as well, because the Roman fort, you can actually see the remains of it. There were still stone walls and the remains of guard towers there. But this is pretty much all it is up here. Only a mile from a town and yet completely remote. You can see the sheep grazing in the distance there. Or if you have sharp eyes you can. Large flock of sheep here, as you can probably see, which puts me in mind of something which I meant to mention, and that's this. When I lived in Loughton, which is on the Central Line, just on the very edge of London, I often used to see foxes. There'd often be foxes in our garden, or I'd pass them in the street. Just down the road there's a little section of forest, a little bit of woodland, where I could go and see deer. There are loads of fallow deer living around there, and of course rabbits as well. In Brecon I have never seen a fox, I've never seen a deer, and I've never even seen a rabbit. And I think that the explanation for that is that this is real farming territory. I think the farmers know that these things are a bloody nuisance, and so they kill them and drive them off. In a way it's a shame, because I'm quite fond of foxes and deer, but there we are. I mean, that's how the countryside really is. If we want mutton and wool and wheat and all the rest of it, and chickens and eggs, that means killing a lot of wild animals, which is something that I think a lot of people in the cities don't quite realise. Even the vegans probably don't know that to grow crops you have to kill pests. At the very least you have to kill rats to stop them destroying things. You have to kill the mice. Any food that we eat, whether it's vegetables or animals, is dependent upon the killing of other animals, which is a sobering thought. And here we are, back in another section of Slwch Lane. You can see there. There is something wonderfully mysterious about these old roads, and I cannot help but find them fascinating to walk along. Anyway, it's clouding over now and getting a bit chilly, but you can see that the lane extends down this way as well. Nobody tends this lane. I've come along here before now when a tree has fallen over. There's a tree trunk lying over the road, across the track there. No one's really responsible for their upkeep. You can see there are fields on either side, but this track runs between the fields. Anyway, I think that's about it for now, so I'll sign off if I can switch the